Hi everyone, so I'm Tarish and I'm going to talk to you today about a project planning offering that I have for you today that we've completed for you. As you can see, Hitch is comprised of a diverse team from lots of different backgrounds with lots of different strengths. We very much utilize that to create a good product for you that would be very powerful in terms of planning projects and looking at how timelines can be optimized. So Rolls-Royce is quite a big company that has lots of different projects under its belt, quite complex, kind of highlights essentially why project planning is quite important, especially when you have lots of different resources and lots of different tasks that need doing that have lots of different dependencies, etc. Essentially, our project, what it really composed of was essentially a raw XER file that essentially had all of the data of a sample project. And we had to use Python to essentially extract all that data. That gave a lot of CSV data. And we had to really comb through it, use lots of data mining techniques, exploratory data analysis to really find the core data points that really told the best story at the most purest reduced level. This allowed us to then essentially reconstruct the data into a project model, essentially, and that allowed us to then um, create visualizations top of that to give insights to stakeholders in terms of where certain pinch points are and what different resources are needed, and all these kind of things. Uh, we also use the extracted data to create an AI predictive and analytics tool. This allowed us to essentially predict ahead of time, essentially the excess amount of hours that would be required for each task. So this would be important in terms of planning ahead and really anticipating um, essentially excess work capacity accordingly. In terms of um, the project, we also had different resource capacity profiles. So this essentially looks at, so you have the project, we also have essentially what is available for the project. And what we want to do is really compare those two things. And the idea is if we had more time, more scope, the tool would essentially more seamlessly, so there is a function for it already, but more seamlessly allow you to really drag and drop different resource capacity profiles within the deliverable, really compare how that compares to what is required by the project. So you'll see that soon. In terms of what we used in Python, these are the extracts in terms of what we did with Python. So extracting from the XCR, and then essentially reconstructing the model into a single project model, essentially using lots of different joins, lots of different techniques, and the predictive modeling section where essentially we looked at the different tasks and predicting what the excess amount of hours would be per task. In terms of what we really wanted for the project, we wanted to make it as automated as possible. Therefore, we essentially linked everything in Power BI to a one-point share, a one-point link, and a SharePoint link, sorry. And this allowed for the data to be essentially updated dynamically. So when a model is run, it resets the results file, for example, and therefore that then um, refreshes the Power BI dashboard. Same thing where when you drop in another XER file, it replaces, and you run the XER extraction script, it replaces the project model script, which is the second file below. So essentially, the first visualization that we created was essentially the what is required by the project at different times within the project for different resources. So as you can see, what we've done in the Power BI dashboard is create this very interactive tool where you can sort of see for different resources what is required in terms of hours for each resource at each period of time, and you can sort of see the profile and when essentially strains will occur within the project or are likely to occur. You can see this nice bump here. Um, and then to compare that, we have essentially the resource capacity profile. So you can sort of see um, how much of each resource is available and how that compares within the project timeline. And we can use that to compare to each other in terms of what of each resource is available. And when we do sort of compare those things, we kind of get this thing called difference in hours. And you can sort of see there are these pinch points there that essentially would be holding the project back. So in the Power BI dashboard, you can see or the manager can see essentially all of these different components will essentially cost the project more money because it'll hold different things back within the project and it'll cause delays, etc. Then you'll see this excess capacity. So sort of considerations can be made there in terms of, well, maybe we can spend less money on this and more money on these components. So this kind of interactivity, is very important. As you can see, we've formatted in a way that is very user friendly, which was quite important. We also use predictive analytics, so you can see here for different resources across the different tasks when there is likely to be excess amount of hours available, not available, sorry, excess amount of hours to occur within the task. So this is essentially when you don't necessarily have a resource capacity, but you're in the pre-planning stages. You can essentially use this to say, okay, actually, if you want to procure resource capacity, you'll definitely basically use this and be like, well, actually, I don't need too much of L530 resource, for example. I need more of this S308, for example, because there's less of that. So in terms of the pain points, in terms of project planning, schedule misalignment, resource inefficiency, these are all of these things that we really try to address at Hinge Hacking, essentially. And yeah, and I think we think our tool has sort of addressed these things. It's dynamic scheduling, got critical path insights, scalability, very easy to use, lots of different visualizations accordingly. We face lots of different challenges when doing it. So the part of essentially extracting everything, very unfamiliar with the data accordingly, but we kind of persevered. And there are lots of different offerings already, but I think our offering does offer something unique. So we've taken some time, and we've also had some of questions from the judges. So these how we've addressed them. This is the second question that we've addressed, and the third question.